All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. And those of you that don't have a microphone, I have the chat window up, so you can always type things in there as well as, questions and things like that. Okay, so welcome. Sorry for, being a couple minutes late with my other class, but today's been hectic. And again, thank you for showing up. I know it's hard to find time, and these things are not mandatory. I know there's some confusing wording that makes it seem like tonight was mandatory. They just want to make sure that you guys are all logged into SAS Studio and you have all of that stuff figured out. And that's why they kind of try and force you into the first meeting. But I always tell my students that's ridiculous because there's no way I'm going to find a time that works for everybody. So it's just not fair to force you to be here. Just watch the video and if you have any questions. But so that's the first thing I want to do is anybody having difficulty getting logged into SAS Studio and getting data uploaded into SAS Studio?
Hi, good evening. This is Alima. I tried. I couldn't get access to it, so I decided that I would just wait till after today, and then when we meet, then I can retry again.
Okay. Yeah. There have been some issues in the past with students trying to get, accounts with SAS on Demand, and problems with, because when you sign up for it, they send you an email and that email can go to your spam folder. So that's one thing to check. And then once you find that email and then you click on it, and then that kind of gets you through the first hoops, and then you finish off your registration and then you're all good to go. Some other things that I can tell you guys that have been hurdles in the past. Your browser. SAS Studio seems to work best in Chrome. And then beyond that, it works well in Firefox and Safari. I have heard of a lot of problems in the past with the different versions of Internet Explorer, Edge, all those kind of things. They've pretty much fixed them and it should work in everything. But if you're using the Microsoft Edge and you're still having issues with SAS Studio, my first suggestion would be try a different browser. And if it doesn't work in a different browser, then that's when I would say, all right, contact tech support and find out what the heck's going on.
I will tell you, I had the problem when you had mentioned the email going into spam. It actually went into quarantine, and I actually had to call Franklin Help Desk for them to release that for me to
Yes. Yeah.
activate my SAS account. So if you're waiting and you're quarantined, you don't see anything in quarantine, I would suggest calling Franklin Help Desk and they can force that email over.
Perfect. That is a great recommendation, Liz. Thank you so much. Yeah. So that is a definitely a very common hurdle, is it going, that little verification email going into either spam or quarantine, which can be a huge pain in the butt. Isn't technology fun? Okay. Once you guys are all in SAS and you have a SAS account, as far as this week's assignment is concerned, all I need is a screenshot showing that you have at least one data file uploaded into SAS. I know the instructions say take a screenshot of like your login showing that you've logged in or something, and then also taking a screenshot of the data uploaded. But I'm like, well, if their data is uploaded, then obviously they've got an account and they've logged in. So why are you bothering with the other thing? So all you need to do is show me a picture, of one data set. You don't have to be like me with all of these data sets, because obviously I've uploaded everything from the various numerous tens of times that I've taught this class. Now, to show you how easy it is to upload something, yours probably doesn't look like this, because for one thing, I created these two folders. And I only did that because I wanted a place to put my data files rather than just putting it in this SAS user folder. There's nothing in this SAS user folder, so there's no reason why you couldn't put it there. I'm just anal retentive about folder names, and I wanted to put it in a thing called data files and that kind of stuff. And then I also wanted my programs in a separate one, because as you will see later on in this course, not this week, but starting in like week 3, actually, I think even week 2 is our first one. Sometimes we have to do a little programming in SAS to get it to do the things that we want it to do. And so once you get that program working, you might as well save it for later when you have to do a histogram again, for instance, or a stem and leaf plot, or run any probabilities, right? So I have another folder where I keep copies of my programs. As far as, you know, how this works, if you just log in, and depending on what it looks like, it's usually, I think it starts in the server files and folders, but it might actually start in the tasks. So if yours opens up and it's got a bunch of things like this, just at the very top, if you click on server files and folders, and then click on files, and if you right click, you can do new folder, and then title it, right, data files or whatever you want to title it, and hit save, and it will create, you know, these folders for you. Then once you have the folder, if you click on that, so you can see that, you guys can all see my screen, correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yes.
Good, good. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't talking about this and you guys are seeing a blank screen. You're like, what the heck are you talking about? So once you click on this, and you can see that, you know, I'm on this because it's, you know, it's like a gray color. It's really simple. You just click on this little icon to upload, and then you choose files, and then you just go and find wherever your file is on your computer and hit open or enter, either one, and it will upload. It'll put it here, and then you hit upload, and it'll put it into your folder. It's that simple. So it's really easy to get the data files, the Excel data files loaded into SAS. And then once they're there, then we can play around with them in SAS. All right, any questions on that?
No, please.
Okay. Before I go on, I want to show you guys and talk about the homework and stuff for this week. But before we do that, I want to make sure, are there any questions you guys have in relationship to the course in general? Are you unsure about, you know, your assignments and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, and any of that kind of stuff that you guys need clarified right now? Because I'll be quite honest, it's kind of confusing. They contradict themselves a lot in this course, in their instructions. So I would not be surprised if you have some questions.
Hi, this is Mindy.
Hi, Mindy.
Hi. I just wanted to clarify, are we doing the weekly work in groups? And if so, who will our assigned group be?
Okay, yeah, that's one of the things that's confusing. They have some stuff in here where it talks about getting into an assigned group and working with your assigned group. As I said, I've taught this course many, many times, and I've found over my many, many times that forcing people into groups is probably the dumbest thing they've ever thought of at this school. So I no longer do it. I encourage groups, and I will foster and support groups in any way, shape, or form, but I will not force groups. So what I tell my students is, I leave it up to you to go into the Q&As, right? And go into the discussions and just say, hey, I'd like to form a group. Who's available, right? So for the Unit 1 doctoral dialogue, you could just start one there and go, you know, here are the dates and times where I'm available. Does anybody want to get together, you know, as a study group type of thing? And even if you don't want to do it every week, just, hey, this week, who's available at these times? And I've had students create their own Zoom sessions, and then they'll meet in a Zoom session and talk about stuff. If none of you has a Zoom account that allows you to create a meeting, and you want to create a meeting, just ask me and I can create it for you, and then give you guys the meeting ID, and then you can go there. And in fact, I'm fairly certain that the meeting ID that you guys are using right now will work, I think, at any time. So if you guys want to all meet like tomorrow at 3, if you just put in that meeting ID, I think it will work, and you guys can meet without me on this ID code, the way I have it set up. And if it doesn't work, just let me know, and I'll change some settings and stuff, but I'm pretty sure you can do it. But you don't even have to do that. I mean, if you just want to email people back and forth, or just pose questions in the doctoral dialogue. So as far as group work is concerned, I encourage it. You guys are absolutely 100% allowed to work in groups on the homework questions for each week. And you'll see that, okay, so this week you have that Unit 1 class meeting, which is just that uploading of a picture thing. Later on, you're going to have a mini project, which you can see is due at the end of November. You're going to have critiquing a research article, which is due December 3rd. And then you're going to have the final project, which is basically due at the end of the class. And those are the only assignments that you have other than your weekly homework assignments, right? So you have what are called these practice assignments, homework, that you have every week. You can work in groups on your practice assignments as much as you want. You can help each other on that stuff. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to do the first question, you're going to do the second question, we're going to share answers. No, it means you're both going to work on question 1. And if you have any questions, it's like, okay, am I reading this wrong? Does this seem right? How did you tackle this, right? You're not sharing answers, you're sharing ideas. And you guys are all doctoral students. You know the difference between cheating and working together. As far as these things are concerned, these are supposed to be more on your own, but I'm still okay with you guys discussing ideas and questions with the group on these. So when we get closer to each one, there will be, you know, a discussion every week for each unit. And I think the mini project starts in week 2 and is due in week 3. So if you want to start asking questions about it in the Unit 2 doctoral dialogue and helping each other with it, that's totally fine to discuss it and ask questions and that kind of stuff. And then in the homeworks, like I said, you can discuss as much as you want, but nothing is mandatory. And anywhere that it tells you to like evaluate your team members, just ignore those instructions, because unfortunately there's a lot of stuff in here that I can't edit. So there's a lot of crap in here that doesn't really pertain to you guys. So for instance, I bet you in here, it'll say something about evaluating your team members. Or maybe it doesn't. Yeah, so if it does, oh yeah, submit your assignment to turn in. No, ignore the turn in requirements for everything.
Actually, while you're on that screen, I have a quick question about the assignments, like the weekly assignments. So it says the exercises on chapter 2, 2.7. Is that exercise 2.2, 2.7, 2.9, 2.11?
Yes.
Chapter 2. Okay, just
Yes.
double checking. And will that are all the exercises from the textbook each week?
Yes, and they are all available in this homework questions folder, which I gave you guys, you know, a link to this Google Drive folder. And if you go in here and you go into homework questions and you click on week 1, here are all the questions from the textbook, all in one.
Thank you.
Word, in one Word doc. And you can, you know, if you download it and then open it, then it's totally editable and you have everything there. You can just put in some space and put your answers there. And that's the other reason why I don't do Turnitin, because if everybody uses this, which I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, why would you waste time typing this in yourself when I've done it for you? You know, then you're probably going to just, once you open it, you're going to, you know, click after hospital, hit the enter key a bunch of times to give yourself some space, and then you're going to type your answer in here, and then you're going to come down here and you're going to do the same thing. Well, if you put this in Turnitin, you're going to get horrible Turnitin scores, because you're all going to have all of this verbiage, right? That's exactly the same in every one of these things, and the only thing that's going to be different are going to be your answers. So that's why I don't bother with Turnitin anymore, because it's just stupid. You get really crappy, horrible Turnitin scores. Everybody's like, "Oh no, am I cheating?" No, it's just because you have the questions. So the only way that wouldn't, you know, happen is if you didn't put the questions in there, which you are also welcome to do. So as far as how I want to see your homeworks, I want everything neat and tidy, and either, you know, typed up in Word. If you want to show your work and you want to show formulas and stuff like that, it's a good time then to learn how to use the equation editor in Word. If you don't want to do that, you could, you know, do it in another application and then take a screenshot and then paste it into Word, you know, as a picture. That's fine. I really don't want to see you guys working on paper and then taking a picture with your phone and then pasting that. That's kind of beneath you. You guys are doctoral students now. You should be able to do things better than that, is basically what I'm saying. So just a little nicer, neater than that. If you want to include the questions, that's totally fine. You don't have to. You could just put all of the answers. You know, you could put 2.2a and then give me your answer, 2.2b and give me your answer, 2.7a, give me your answer, and so on and so forth. If you are going to use the questions and then you're going to put your answers in there, all I ask is that you put your answers in bold or red, a different color, something so it stands out. So I can go right to your answers really quick and not have to figure out where the hell they are in, amongst all of this junk. So like if you wanted to just write just to the right of this what the population is rather than putting it on a separate line, that's fine. Just put it in a different color or make it bold or something so it stands out. So I can sit there and I can look at it really quick and go, yes, 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 and see what you get right and then mark anything that's wrong, and send it back to you, that kind of thing. Because as I mentioned in my announcement, I encourage you guys to ask questions on these things and get feedback from me early in the week, and not just turn something in and have me, grade it and you see the grade and go, oh crap, I missed like 5 of these. Well, yeah, you should have asked. I am not here to be just your grader. In fact, that is the least of my duties, and the one that I hate the most and like to do the least is grading all this crap. So I would much rather have you work in groups, ask questions, post them to the doctoral discussion, email them to me if you don't want to post them, right? But please post them. Don't be embarrassed to ask what you might think is a stupid question. There's no stupid questions, only stupid teachers. And then by all means, you can send me your work early and I will look it over and I will use track changes and I will write up anything that's wrong and send it back to you. And if you want to use that service, quote unquote, if you want my feedback and you want me to look at something, basically kind of give it a preliminary grading and then send it back to you for you to fix before you turn in for real, that just has to be to me no later than, let's say Friday at midnight. Basically, when I get up in the morning Saturday and I get up pretty early Pacific time, if it's not already in my possession by that point, I am not grading it because the weekend is my time. And I really would rather you give it to me earlier so I can give it back to you and not have to spend 8 hours on Saturday looking over your stuff. And I know that might sound selfish, but the reason I did a lot of work and I have a PhD, which allows me the opportunity to say, you know what, the weekends are my time, damn it. I teach enough of these classes Monday through Friday that I'd like to take some time on the weekend with my family. But I will look them over. I'm just saying, get them to me no later than Friday at midnight, and then I'll get them back to you as soon as I can. But if you get them to me earlier in the week, you'll get them back really quick. If you are sending them to me late Friday or super early Saturday morning, as long as it gets to me before I get up, I'll let it slide. But please, just to make it easy and fair on everybody, let's just say midnight Pacific time. I'll even give you midnight Pacific time on Friday to get it to me. Those you might not get back until Sunday, right? So if they have a lot of problems, you're going to have limited time to fix them and then turn them in by midnight Sunday Eastern time, which is when everything is due. So everything is always due Sunday at midnight Eastern time. It's basically Franklin local time, and the Franklin main campus is Eastern time. Okay. Any other kind of bookkeeping questions in that realm?
Hi, it's Tanya.
Hi, Tanya.
So right above where it says action items, it says note, you may also utilize smart thinking tutoring.
Yes.
Do you know what that was?
It's a tutoring, it's an online tutoring service that the college uses. And they used to, before we switched over to Canvas, they used to have a link where you could get to it from the classroom. I cannot for the life of me find it in this anywhere. I've gone through all these links, and I can't find information on how to get to that tutoring service. So I have sent that to the dean of the department, and he asked me to send it on to classroom support. and they're working on getting back to me with that information. I would say if you want to utilize the smart thinking tutoring, I would just do a Google search for smart thinking tutoring, maybe with Franklin in there, and see if you can, or go to the Franklin, homepage and search that way.
I did.
It's just something that the school offers. They just don't happen to have the information correctly put into these courses.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
This is Alima. I noticed that there's a link for the smart thinking tutoring when we go into the module, the home
Oh,
module.
okay.
For information, there's a link there.
All right, let me see. Modules. Oh yeah, look at that. Smart thinking tutoring. Holy moly. Click here to access it. Oh, look at that. I feel so stupid. I didn't even find that. Okay. Oh, but like click on this and there's nothing here. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So thank you. Who said that?
Me, Alima.
Alima. Thank you, Alima. So everybody send Alima like $2 through Venmo for giving you this tip. And you're good to go. Smart thinking. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Yeah, so you go through modules and then you can find it that way. Oh, I feel so stupid that I didn't see that earlier. Okay, great. Any other questions?
I had a question for myself because
Yes.
for me to, I guess I overlooked it as well. In order for me to view the Google Docs, I have to go to the email that you have sent us prior to this course. Is there a quicker way for me to access it through Franklin? Canva.
It's in announcements. If you go to announcements and then Google Drive access, the link is there.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then what I would suggest is once you click on the link and open it, I would save it as a bookmark.
Noted.
Because it's a web page like anything else, so you can save it as a bookmark like anything else. And you guys will be going here regularly. For one thing, so this document has the recordings from the last time I taught 807. So you can go to week 1 on Wednesday and then week 1 on Thursday, and then you can click on these and you can watch the recordings for that. And then of course, obviously you'd be more apt to care about what's going on week 2 and 3 and stuff like that, because week 1 is a lot of just silly stuff like we're talking about, kind of bookkeeping stuff, nothing that actually teaches you anything about stats. So you can always go here to look at the old ones, but then you can also open up this one to look at this week's recording or this class's recordings. Obviously there's nothing there yet. Once this recording shows up later tonight, I will paste the hyperlink here. And then of course here, I put the little link here to get you to the Zoom class as well. It's a bunch of places, so I'm just trying to pepper it to you. Here is the folder that you guys are going to spend a lot of time in, the SAS folder, because it helps you do SAS stuff. And the number one thing is this how-to summary. You'll use this one more than anything else because I've broken it down by week. So each week I've put all of the SAS commands, and then when necessary, the code that we use to do all the things that we needed to do for that week. So you can see in week 2, there are a lot of SAS codes options, like one for creating stem and leaf plots. And then here's an even better way to make it look really good that a student did. So if you guys like a couple classes ago, I had a student and she was just a SAS wizard. She'd never done SAS before, but she just got into it and watched a bunch of videos and learned how to do a bunch of really cool stuff. And every time she would like show something really awesome in one of the Zoom recordings, I'm like, how the hell did you do that? And she would share her code and I would just copy and paste it here so other people could use her code later. Again, I should have gotten her name in like a Venmo account so people could start giving her tips, seriously, for some of these great things. But you can see that each week you've got, okay, so here's how to do a quantile plot through the menu system. And then here's a coding option, which of course, if you have the option between doing it with the menus and doing it with coding, do it with the menus. It's easier, right? The only time you would want to do it with coding is if you want to play around with it and make it do, weird stuff and fun stuff. And if you want to play around with settings and stuff like that. So this is a document that you guys will look at a lot. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you have quick and easy access to the Google Drive. And then here are copies of all the data sets. And you'll want to read this first, because if you go in here, they're by each week, which can get to be a pain in the butt. If you want to just load them all at once, you'll want to use this zip file and then basically download it to your computer and then upload it all into SAS all at once. But it's all described here in the README file. And then homework questions. These are just, like I said, what I showed you before. These are copies of all of the questions from that I copied out of the book, and then you can use these or not, but it just saves you the hassle of having to do it yourself. And it also, in all honesty, you don't need the book. So if you haven't bought the book, you really don't need the book, because you've got the homework questions, you've got copies of the PowerPoints, and then more importantly, you have all of my videos, right, for each week. So in week 2, modules. All right, somebody needs to go on mute. Thank you. Somebody was getting bad feedback. In here, I'll have all of my videos are listed in each of the modules. You know, so for each week, if you go through the stuff, it will. So unit 1 preparation, right, here's your key topics, videos on how to use SAS, right, videos on R, right, videos on Excel. And then, all right, class 1 meeting. Where the hell are my videos? Did I put them in here? That's more of the same stuff, action items. No. I thought I put them in announcements, but I don't see any announcements for them. I'll have to figure out where I put them again.
You put them in an email. It
Is
should
that
be
where I
in
put them in an email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Inbox.
Darn it. Okay. I'll make an
I don't
announcement of them.
remember seeing the email.
I'll have to put them in an announcement or something, but I had them all for each week, you know, week by week.
Are you talking
so
about the homework? I'm sorry, which one are you looking for?
my videos, I thought I had listed videos to help you guys learn the topics for each week, but
I don't remember seeing videos either.
okay. All right.
Yeah,
Maybe
me
I
either.
didn't. I think it's because I used to do it, but now that they have this Canvas, they seem to have a crap ton of their own videos. They don't need mine anymore. But anyways.
Yeah, sorry, it wasn't videos. It was just dates of your Zoom meetings.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Okay.
Now I know there's videos over on the left where it says studio where you could upload, but I clicked that the other day and it was empty.
Oh yeah, no, that's just to upload. What I normally do is I normally put links to my videos.
Got it.
So for instance, if I go here and teaching videos, what I do is I take all of my statistics videos and I'll grab the ones that are pertinent to what we're learning each week, and I'll put copies of these hyperlinks into an announcement. Say, okay, well, here's, you know, how, you know, this week we're dealing with measures of center. So here's a video that teaches you about measure of center and so on and so forth. So I thought I had those all out there somewhere, but.
Should we be on the lookout for videos for this week's assignments?
This week, yeah, I can give you guys some stuff. It's basically, this week is all really the only videos I have that would help you are on collecting data.
Okay.
Because this week is all about how to collect data and then types of data. So it talks about the difference between quantitative versus qualitative, and then the different levels of quantitative data. And those would really probably be the only 2 videos that I would share for this week, because it's mostly vocabulary and that kind of stuff. Oh, Sherry, yes.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. Is it?
No.
You've got all these videos, and this is a lot of great stuff. And for those of us, I'll be the elephant in the room. absolutely paranoid about this class, but I'm trying to go into it with an
You're
open
not the only
mind.
one. Trust me, you're not the only one.
So I mean, I'm literally already like stumbling on the directions. So is it, given all the videos that are out here, is the workshop, there's one this Saturday morning, is that worth going to? I
The
went
SAS
to it,
workshop?
yeah, because I went to it about a year ago when I first started this whole process, and honestly don't remember any of it at this point. And it was not being in the class, it wasn't very useful because I wasn't using it.
Sure.
So I'm wondering if that's worth my time, or if these videos, if you think these videos are more helpful.
Well, I've heard nothing but rave reviews from students every term who've gone to the SAS workshop and said it helped a lot.
Good.
Yeah. But in addition to that, I would say your number one friend is going to be YouTube, because you'll notice that I have only these very, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos on how to do stuff using SAS Studio. Most of my videos either show people how to do things using StatCrunch, or they just show they're more lecture style. And then if I do examples, it's usually an example with a TI calculator or Excel, because I tried to keep them to things that most students would have available to them. Because these are videos I did for other classes that I created literally years ago, and then they're on my YouTube channel that just students from all over the world watch. So I don't do a lot of stuff in SAS Studio.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So for
But
tonight, all we have to do is have this I keep calling SAS, the SAS account opened, and then do a screenshot of that, and then a screenshot that we have at least one of the data files loaded up, or uploaded, I should say.
actually, I don't even care about you showing me that you've got the account. All I care about is a picture showing that you have a minimum of one data file loaded.
Perfect.
Because if you've gotten this far, you've obviously gotten the account and everything working.
Perfect. Thank you. I
Yeah.
breathed again.
And I'm
I
glad
don't
that you brought that up, because while we're talking about screen grabs, keep in mind that your instructor turns 50 in March. So for the love of God, do not give me a screen grab of your whole screen if you're trying to show me something small on the screen. So later on, once we get into later chapters, we'll be doing things where we have to run things in SAS and then put our results on a Word document. So let's just say we've loaded this set of data. Let's see what my data looks like. Is it something that works? Yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then let's say we go to tasks, and we go to, we don't want to do graph. We want to do statistics, and we want to do summary statistics. So we double click on summary statistics, get this out of the way. Don't need to save it. And then I go and I choose my data. So there's my data, and then my analysis variable, I hit plus, and I'm going to do it on rate. So I double click on that, and then I run it. And here's my output, right? Please do not take a screenshot of the whole freaking screen and put that in your Word document, because when you do that, by the time it shrinks itself down into a Word document, this is so freaking small, I can't read it. So just take a screenshot of just this, right? If you don't know how to use the snipping tool, learn how to use the snipping tool, right? If you're on a Windows machine, it's very easy. You click new, and then you just highlight just that. And then if you open up Word, right, and go, let's say you want to put it down here and just do paste, there it is, and it's nice and big, and I can see it, and I go, yay. Instead, I'll have people that'll do, they'll do a control print screen, and they'll basically get a snip of the entire screen. Or worse yet, people have a dual monitor system, and it'll be both screens, and then they come over here and they paste it. Oh yeah, I can read that. Sure. Right? So for the love of God, people, please get your snips right so I can see what's going on, because that is just too damn small for my old decrepit eyes. So thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. So as far as what you would need to do for tonight's class, you could literally take the snipping tool. Wait, I gotta change this first because I gotta go to the server, and there's my data stuff, and then I can open the snipping tool and hit new, and then just do this, wink, and you can post that, and that's good enough. That shows me that you've got a file up there. I mean, literally, that's it. If you wanted to make it bigger, that's fine. But that's all I care
I'm
about.
older than 50, so I have the eyes and the heart, the weak heart. So I'm in this with you.
Good. And I'm seeing some of you are saying in the group chat that you enjoy my sense of humor, which is good. I'm glad you guys all realize that this is all in good fun. I try and keep it light, and I try and use humor. So please don't be offended by anything I say that is supposed to be taken as a joke. And also, I think I've mentioned this before, but in case I haven't, when I send out emails and things, I will type certain words in all caps to emphasize that word. I'm not yelling at you. I am emphasizing a word, as I just did right there. And I've had students in the past go, "Why are you yelling at me?" And I'm like, "I'm not yelling at you. Yelling is all caps for the entire damn sentence. When I capitalize one word, I'm just emphasizing that one word." So I like to point that out so people don't think I'm yelling at them. Okay, anything else?
I've got a question about the class overall. How technology driven is this class?
Well, it used to be that they required everybody to do everything in SAS. They've loosened that up, and now they let you do it in whatever technology you want. But with that being said, you're going to have to figure out how to use some form of technology, because you do not want to be doing these statistics by hand.
Mhm.
So whether you want to learn how to do it in SAS, which is actually a lot easier than you guys think. SAS is, especially now that they have SAS Studio. Back in my days, all right, Kitty, sit down and let old man Craig tell you a story. Back when I did my dissertation, SAS Studio did not exist. There was no such thing as these lovely little point and click menus. We had to, so for instance, if I wanted to run summary statistics like I did here, if you click on code, I had to actually write all of this crap out in SAS by hand and then run it and pray that it worked. And we had these SAS books that gave us examples of how to do things, and so we had to do all this programming by hand. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes you do have to manipulate the code, and you do end up getting your own programs, as I have here for to do a histogram. So here's the code that we'll use to make a histogram look better. Because if you just run the normal histogram, it looks like crap. It just doesn't look right. They don't do the bins the way you want them, and it's terrible. So you basically have to force it to start the bins at the right place and have the right width and all that kind of stuff. And then you get a decent looking histogram. And so there are some limitations to SAS, but I would suggest one of two things. I would either learn how to do everything in SAS, and then I would keep copies of all of your programs in SAS, and I would also just come in here and copy all of this code and paste it into a Word document and save that Word document, because when you start doing your dissertations, you're going to have some statistical analyses that you're going to have to run in your dissertations. And then if you're going to want to do that in SAS, if you have all your code here, then it will remind you, how to go back and do it when you have to do it for your dissertation. Or if you do it by menus, then you maybe want to do a quick little, like I did with this Word document, give yourself the list of how to get there. You go to statistics, one-way frequencies, data set variable, that kind of thing. If you want to learn Excel, as Alima says, I recommend that highly, because for those of you that were here early, you heard me tell my other class this. There probably is no more marketable skill right now than Excel. If you want to get a good job, damn near all of them require some form of Excel skills. So the more you can do in Excel and the more you can learn how to play around and get stuff to work in Excel. The better you can get at playing with Excel, the better off you are for future jobs. Unfortunately, Excel can get kind of clunky when you're trying to do some things, but you can do pretty much damn near everything we need to do in this class in Excel. There are a couple things that you won't be able to do. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but what I say is, when you're working on the homework and you seem to like, I can't figure out how to do fill in the blank in Excel, that's when you post it to the doctoral dialogue and other students chime in and say, oh, you can do it this way. Or I go, oh, yeah, you can't do that in Excel. And then you just have to do it a different way. But my suggestion would be either learn how to do everything in SAS or everything in Excel, or kind of a combination of the two. And that would be the only technology I would worry about. You don't want to learn R. R is what SAS used to be. It's all code driven. So you have to do everything by hand with code. It doesn't have point and click things like SAS does. You don't want to do SPSS. It's more menu driven, but SPSS is for people who don't know how to do real statistics. They do SPSS. It's gotten better, but it still has a reputation of being kind of SAS light. But like I said, it's gotten better, but I would avoid it. It's not worth your time, really. And then that's it. I mean, those are really your only feasible options for your dissertation. I assume all of you are going to have to do some sort of statistics in your dissertation. And if you're sitting there going, no, I'm not going to, yes, you are. Trust me, you are. So you're going to have to get comfortable with something. Anything else?
I have one non-class related question. Has anyone ever told you sound just like Dane Cook?
No, but I can see that. Sure. Yeah. I wish I had his money. All right. So any other bookkeeping class type stuff?
No, sir.
All right. Then as far as the homework is concerned, get on that as fast as you can, right? Because the week is already ticking away. Post your questions to the doctoral dialogue. I can tell you that you guys are going to get these two wrong, almost guaranteed. You're not gonna get these right the first time. So look at it, talk about it. The biggest problem is students don't seem to understand a confounding variable properly. So I want to talk briefly about what a confounding variable is. A confounding variable is basically a variable that will give you misleading results when you run the stats. It is mostly found whenever you're trying to do some sort of correlation analysis. So you're trying to see if two or more things are related, right? Correlated. A confounding variable is something that either makes a relationship look stronger than it really is or makes it look weaker than it really is, because it basically muddies the water. The funniest example I like to use is the fact that ice cream sales and homicide rates are very strongly correlated. And this is true. Nationwide, as ice cream sales go up, so do homicide rates. And as ice cream sales go down, so do homicide rates across the country. So you would think, holy crap, ice cream, makes people want to kill people. No, there's a confounding variable there. Does anybody know what it is?
Heat.
Yeah, exactly. Heat, the weather. Yeah. Ice cream sales go up because the weather gets hot. And murder rates go up because the weather gets hot. People just get more agitated when they're sweaty and hot, right? So the confounding variable in that scenario is the weather or heat, right? So that's what a confounding variable is. Let's look at question B. So you have this high school math teacher that's convinced that this new software program is going to improve math scores for all of their students that are taking the SAT. So in order to evaluate her theory, she offers the students the opportunity to use the software on the school's computers during a 1-hour period after school. And then the teacher concludes the software is effective because the students using the software had significantly higher scores on the SAT than the students who did not use the software. So let's think about the scenario, right? She's got a bunch of kids that are all going to take the SAT, and she says, hey kids, if you want to stay after school for an hour and play with this software on the computers, it's going to help you do better on the SATs. Some students do it, some students don't do it. And she looks at the test scores of those two groups, and the test scores of the students who stayed after school and worked on the software actually on average scored significantly higher than the other students, so she got a significant result with her analysis. And so she thinks that the software is the reason why they did better. Can anybody think of another reason why that group would do better than the other group?
The
I think I
time.
had two answers for this one. I think, oh, yeah, one was the time. I think the first one was, students that took advantage of the 1 hour after school were probably more astute than the students that didn't take advantage of that. And then a second one is, I think it mentions that she used the overall scores and not broke down each score, like math section, English section. So that program was just to help for math scores.
Awesome. Those are both fantastic observations. And the first one, in my opinion, is the big one. The idea that she let the students choose whether or not they would stay after school and use the software, right there ruined her results. Because as you said, the type of students that would take the initiative to stay after school are already the type of students that are probably going to do better on the SAT because they're just more committed. And that actually comes to, it almost correlates with what's called a voluntary response bias. When you ask people poll questions, if you go around and ask survey questions, you always get what's called a voluntary response bias, because people who will actually respond to a survey are statistically significantly different across basically any measurement spectrum you can find than people who won't take a survey. And so by letting people voluntarily take a survey, you've automatically introduced bias into your sample. And that's the big problem. That's the confounding, basically the confounding variable in B is their ability to choose whether or not to stay after. If she really wanted to test the effectiveness of the software, she would have to randomly assign some students to use it and some students not to use it. Or really, the best thing would be everybody take a practice SAT. Now, half of you, I'm going to force you to use this program. The other half, which I've randomly chosen, so I don't cherry pick all the good students to go into one, section and all the bad students not to. Then I'm going to have you guys take the practice test again, and I'm going to look at your difference in your scores on those who used the software and those who didn't use the software. And that would be a much more valid result. So that's kind of an example of a confounding variable. Excellent. All of these questions that ask you to find the population of interest, the sampling frame and stuff like that, those are usually pretty straightforward, pretty easy, and you shouldn't have any problems with that. The type of sampling can get tricky. Question 11 asks for you to identify which one is a simple random sample, which one is a stratified sample, and which one is a cluster sampling. Now, simple random sampling is pretty easy to understand if you guys go and read the book or watch any of the videos or, Google search for it. And again, I'll put my video links up later tonight or early tomorrow. You'll see that simple random sampling is very simple. It is basically names in a hat. If you want to do simple random sampling, you have to randomly pick names from a hat, is basically how it works. The true definition, so there are two types of what are called random samples. There's just a random sample, and then there is a simple random sample. A random sample means that every object has the same probability of being picked. A simple random sample means that every object has the same probability of being picked, just like we said for the random sample. But in addition to that, in order to be a simple random sample, it also must be true that every sample of size n, let's say you want to sample 20, So every possible sample of size 20 from your population has to have the same probability of being sampled as every other sample. And that only happens if you're basically sampling in a way that mimics the idea of putting names in a hat and randomly picking names out of a hat. I'll give you an example of something that is a random sample that is not a simple random sample. Let's say you wanted to, let's say there are 10,000 students currently enrolled in Franklin, and you want a sample size of 1,000. You want to randomly pick 1,000 students out of that sample. Well, you could go to the registrar and you could get a list, a numerical list of everybody's student ID number in, listed numerically. And then since you want 1,000 out of 10,000, you basically want 10%, right? You want 1/10 of the population, quote unquote population. If you could see me, I'm doing air quotes, because you're considering the Franklin students to be the population that you're concerned about, and you're going to take a sample of those. So you're going to take a 1/10 sample. So you could simply just roll a 10-sided die if you're a geek like me and you have Dungeons and Dragons dice that have 10 sides. Or there are programs that can randomly generate a number between 1 and 10 and that kind of thing. But basically you randomly pick a number between 1 and 10. And so let's say you get a 7. You go to the 7th number on the list, and that's going to be the first person in your sample. And because you want 10%, you now just go every 10 after that. So you go 7, 17, 27, 37, through the entire list, and that will end up giving you 1,000 people in your sample. Now, you can see that because you randomly chose that first number between 1 and 10, everybody on the list had a 1 out of 10 or a 10% chance of being chosen. Because if you were number 25 on the list, you have a 1 in 10 chance of being chosen, i.e. if the die had come up a 5, then you would have gotten chosen, right? And if you were, number 533 on the list, then they would have need to have rolled a 3, right? It's that kind of thing. So everybody had a 1 out of 10 chance of being picked. But because you were picking every 10th thing on the list, you couldn't have any sample where 2 consecutive numbers were in it, right? You couldn't have a sample that consisted of the first 1,000 names. So some samples are positive or possible, and other samples are impossible. So every sample doesn't have equally likely chances of being picked. So that is a random sample, but it's not a truly simple random sample. To be a truly simple random sample, you would have to ask your computer program to randomly generate 1,000 random numbers between 1 and 10,000. And then that would be the equivalent of picking 1,000 names out of a hat. So you can see that picking out of a hat is the only truly simple random sample. Any questions on that? All right. Sherry, do me a favor and mute your microphone. I'm getting weird feedback from you. And then by all means, just come off mute whenever you want to say something. Okay. Now, the biggest problem students have is understanding the difference between cluster sampling and stratified sampling. And I always like to see pictures of it. And I like this one. I've used it time and time again to illustrate the difference between stratified versus cluster. And if you just do what I did and go to Google and do, you see how as soon as I typed in cluster, it came up with cluster sampling versus stratified. Now, it probably won't do the same thing for you because you don't Google search the same thing I do. I'm a big fat math geek who, Google searches math things all the time. So all I have to do is type in CLU and it automatically goes, hey, you want to look at cluster sampling versus stratified sampling, you big nerd? And I'm like, yes, click, right? Because I've done it so many times before with my classes. But this is a great visualization of what's going on because stratified sampling, so visually, look at these two things and realize that the entire, if you can kind of see it, this little black rectangle, the big one, represents the entire population that you want to sample from, right? This is the black one on the outside. With stratified sampling, you break up your population into strata, these 6 different strata. And you can see that these 6 strata are all uniform in color, right? These are all black, these are all blue, these are all purple, and so on and so forth. So when you do stratified sampling, what you do is you take some sort of characteristic and you take your population and you divide it up by that characteristic. So maybe you would divide it up by voting preference, right? And you would have Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, you know, whatever you want all of your categories to be. And then within each of those strata, that's where strata comes from. Each one of those stratas, you would then randomly sample from within each of those, right? So you pick 2 from here, 3 from there, 2 from there, and don't think that it has to go 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. That's just, you just randomly pick some, randomly pick some, randomly pick some. The only reason why they did different numbers is they wanted to point out the fact that you don't have to have the same size from each of your strata. In fact, if you were going to do the one that I was talking about with the politics, where you had, you know, the strata of Republican, the strata of Democratic, the strata of Independent, the strata of Green Party, and so on and so forth, you wouldn't want to pick 1,000 from each, because your population is not going to be divided that way, right? We don't have an equal number of Democrats, Republicans, Green Party, and Independent voters in any population. I don't care if you're talking about statewide, nationwide, or even, you know, county-wide. It's just not going to be the case, right? The vast majority of people are going to be put into Republican and Democrat, and there's going to be a much smaller that consider themselves independent, green, undecided, or whatever. So you want to pick a larger random sample from the Democrat and Republican piles and smaller random samples from the others to kind of better mirror the distribution of what's happening in the actual population. So that's why your samples can be different sizes. You still want them to be random, but you can weight them according to what the weighting is in the population, and that's going to give you a more representative sample. It's still going to be random, but it's going to be more representative, which is oftentimes more important. So that's stratified. You stratify them by this characteristic, and then you randomly sample from within. Now, cluster sampling, you can see that the colors are all mixed, because you don't divide your population by the characteristic, you just divide them up somehow. So, you know, we were concerned about voting patterns. So that's why the characteristic of how people vote was important. And that's why we stratified them by how they vote. Maybe in this example, we're still concerned with voting patterns, but rather than breaking everybody up by how they vote, we break them up by where they vote, right? So these are geometric clusters. So maybe it's the 6 different districts that we're going to look at. And then from amongst those 6 districts, you randomly choose a certain number of them. In this case, they chose 2 out of the 6. And then you sample everybody in each of those clusters. So you would take all the voters from this district, all the voters from this district, and that would be your random cluster sampling. So that's the difference between stratified and clustered. And I think once you see the picture, it makes it a lot easier to answer the homework question as to which one of these represents a stratified sampling and which one represents a cluster sampling. After that, the only other ones that are going to give you guys some difficulty of questions, 216, really pay attention to the questions. This is one of those where I want you guys to discuss this one in the doctoral dialogue, because once you start discussing this as a group, you'll start to see very quickly what the answers really should be. And then the only other one that gives people some pause is the glaze question in 22. And again, talk about that in the doctoral dialogue. And in fact, remember, talk about any and all of them, and I will chime in as needed. But, you know, answer each other's questions more than anything else. And it'll all kind of work itself out. It'll make more sense once you start doing that. Okay, we're already 4 minutes over. So any last minute questions you have for me?
I have one real quick question.
Sure, Jeff.
about the homework.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So for that example, that question we were just looking at, let's say I have decided A is cluster sampling. Do I just need to put the answer, or do I need to put the answer and then like a justification of why I chose
that? Is a fantastic question. You do not need to justify your answers unless it actually asks you to justify it, right? So for something like this, it just says identify it. So just identify it. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked that. because that goes for all of them. You're right. You know, so like, what is the population of interest? You just have to answer. You don't have to say why you think that's the population of interest. So unless it specifically says, you know, justify or explain, that kind of thing, just answer. Anything else? All right. Well, again, thank you for showing up. I know it's not easy to find an hour in everybody's busy schedules. We will be here again next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Show up if you can, and if you can't, watch the video, especially starting next week and moving on. You know, I'll show you how to do things in Excel. I'll show you how to do things in SAS. We'll go through homework questions and actually work things out, and you'll get the actual answers, right? So I'm perfectly fine with giving you guys the answers to these questions before you have to turn them in, because I want you to learn more than I want you to get penalized for getting something stupid, you know, some silly little question. So show up or watch the video. Thank you. I will post the video link as soon as I can later tonight, hopefully tomorrow morning at the latest. And I will try and get all my videos posted as well. But you can also always just go to YouTube and search yourself, right? Just go to YouTube and type in whatever you're trying to learn about, and you'll find great videos. And you can always go to my YouTube channel, which is just Dr. Craig McBride, PhD, and search it for whatever you're looking for. But that's it. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you guys next week. And post your questions to the Q&A, and we'll get you through this. Trust me, it's not as bad as you think. All right. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good night.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.